back to another video. Today we have just our midweek recap. So just let's get right into it here. Not going to waste too much time. Make sure you guys please do me a favor and like this video as always. That is very much appreciated. So moving on here, I have a 5-minute chart of the S&P 500. This is how I trade. This is my setup personally to day trade the S&P 500. It's quite simple, and when we're in the middle of these zones, I avoid purple. That's all area of chop that I don't trade generally. I may day trade scalp, but really, generally the moves are not anything I want to take part in. The risk to reward for me in the purple box has never been good, so it's something I avoid. I love to trade the outsides. I love to trade down here below our green lines, or even as we're approaching the green lines. I like to play long bounces, but once you get below, generally you usually get pretty good rallies. It's usually just a matter of time. Right here was an example of it. It's 9:23. We were down here for a couple weeks, looks like, and then we ended up pushing up, right? But we basically traded sideways for 5 trading days, whatever that is. And then we finally bounce back, and it's a mean reversion chart, right? So when I'm looking to get long down here in this area below this line, it's generally a play on a mean reversion back to the middle of the channel, the purple zone. Right now we're right here, right in the middle of the purple zone. So for me, there's nothing really cooking. I am not doing much. I traded Apple today, or swung it overnight and closed it this morning. Contracts went, $150 to, I sold for $350. Weeklies, didn't even mean to hold them overnight, but boy, am I glad I did. So this is what we got here. We're right in the middle of the channel. This is kind of chop zone. I'm not interested personally. As we start approaching, if we start approaching, which, if we get a Santa Claus rally, then I'm looking at 390 and possibly 400, a little bit above 400. Now, I don't know that we're going to get a Santa Claus rally. We very well could not get a Santa Claus rally, but me personally, as long as we continue to trade in the zone, I will not be participating in trading of the S&P 500. I'll day trade some names like Apple. I generally day trade, as well as Tesla. But I mainly just trade Apple and S&P 500. So that's what I'm looking at. Let's pull over to a chart on Apple. I had some news about slowing down of iPhone 14 production, I believe, and it sold off pretty nasty today. And it actually got bought up fairly well. So again, Apple, it's in the middle of this zone here, so I'm not really interested in it. But same thing goes really for Apple, except it's a little bit different. Every name, stock in particular, respects my chart chart differently, right? So S&P would always stay inside these lines. Apple tends to move out, so you have to adjust the lines or just have a second setup, which is what I do for Apple. So this is my S&P 500 though. Chart. So this is what I'm looking at, really levels to pay attention to. 350, the key psych level, but also just 353 to 350. That's if you get that again, I'd be interested to take that one long. And then obviously if you get down back below 342 or below that, I'm interested. So just because there's this lowest band doesn't mean price can't go lower than that. It doesn't very often, though. The COVID crash was an example, but that's kind of how I'm playing it. It's more of a mean reversion on these type of plays. You just buy time, and you're playing more so for time rather than moves on the stock, right? So what I mean by that is if I were to buy right here at 347, I might average in and be buying all the way down to 340. And then at that point, I have my risk set, but at that point I am holding for time, rather than for moves, right? So if it breaks down, whatever, if it breaks down an extra $3, I'm still holding it because I'm holding it for time. So to do that, you have to, your sizing has to be appropriate, which is the hard part for pretty much every trader. So that's kind of how I approach to trade with this chart. But I think it's really important to find repeatable systems that you can literally not look at a chart for a month and then come back and basically it doesn't matter, you didn't miss anything. You can just look at that chart and understand where you will play off of, what levels you will play off of. To me, that's super important. If you're playing off supply and demand, which in all honesty is what markets are. They're all supply and demand, but the trading style supply and demand is not as repeatable as you might think because there's more variation. Mean reversion tends to be higher win rate, tends to be more reliable in all markets. Supply and demand can be, yeah, sure, this stock might have ran out of sellers here, but who's to say news isn't going to drop in 2 minutes that says, the Fed's going to hike by 200 basis points. Well, then you're going to find more sellers, right? So it's hard to really gauge for stuff like that. That's why I personally, and I'm speaking from experience. I used to trade with supply and demand like only, but I don't believe that is a systematic way of doing it. I don't believe, to me, if it's systematic, I could build an algorithm around it. Something like this, easy to build an algorithm around if you understand coding and computer programming and Python in particular. Then coding something like this on an algo is quite easy, right? But if you're like supply and demand, well, where did price, I guess you could do where did price rally based off of like a 3% move and then measure from there. But like I said, the win rate's just not as good. So thanks guys for watching this video. Thanks for viewing. I know it was short this week, but there's really not much going on right now. So, I don't want to give any wrong information. This is what I'm seeing. I'm avoiding the purple, the chop zone, 384 to, I'm starting to get interested long or short above 384, 385, but I'm being patient. Don't want to jump in too early on these rallies because they could rip your face off. So thanks guys, and I'll be back with more videos. Peace.